Huge offseason ahead for Michigan State basketball. So, of course, we had to bring on a massive guest, the one, the only Graham Couch of the Lansing State Journal, to talk about it. Woo, let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white 5 days a week. Please rate, review, subscribe, comment below. Comment whose hat you think is cooler, my white Titleist hat or Graham Couch's white Lugnuts hat. I think I'm going to lose this one at a 90-10 split, but hey, nevertheless, thank you very much for tuning in. That's Graham Couch of the Lansing State Journal, the Couch and the Rube podcast. That is a completely useless introduction because you guys already know who he is. Graham, how we doing, man? We doing okay before we set our journey onto Maryland Heights here in a few days?
Yeah, no, actually Wednesday headed down to
okay.
Headed down. It should be it should be a good journey. I don't love the length of the drive, but you know what? Yeah. It's still the postseason, and as fun as basketball is, to do something new, to cover MSU hockey 12 years after I got this job in the postseason for the first time is kind of fun.
Yeah, no kidding. We're going to talk about hockey maybe at the end here if we have time. We talked a lot about it with Jeremy Dewar yesterday. If you want some hockey content, go to yesterday. We'll also have Nathaniel Bott on later this week. Basketball, though. Graham, you have seniority here as it comes to making Michigan State content, so I'm going to let you drive this show, okay? You're going to be the producer here. I'm ready to just talk about this offseason. I'm ready to act like the last year or last 4 years never even happened. But do you want to just lay out a final thought and drill it into Michigan State fans' brains right now about the last season before we talk of the offseason, or are you just ready to just go right into the next few weeks here for Michigan State?
Yeah, I mean, I understand why people feel that way, and it was a frustrating year. And I think Izzo laid it out that they underachieved, but he underachieved. I mean, it began with them not getting the big man who was capable of countering what you saw with Armada Baycott. I mean, that is ultimately the problem. And the season was always likely to end that way. And everything else you think about this team begins there, right? And I don't think it was Izzo not willing to adjust, because if you listen to his comments last April when he thought he had a squad, he said he'd adjust, whether it was going in the portal, it was a starting 5 freshmen. He was not going to crash and burn was his line. So he said it directly. I think it became convenient because he thought he had the team to say, well, I'd rather do it like this. And I'm sure he would. But he just miscalculated on the big men. The Jackson Kohler injury hurt to some degree. I think they thought Carson Cooper was going to take steps that he didn't take. And then Mady Sissoko, I think the rest of us saw his ceiling before the coaching staff did somehow.
Unfortunately.
I don't think they repeat those mistakes. And I think, whatever you think of A.J. Hoggard, it's a different year if he can get downhill because he's got a big man that people aren't helping off of. Or he's got somebody he can really run pick and rolls with, and that. So everything begins with not having a really upper tier, a starting 5 of Big Ten caliber that was ready to go.
So let's set the stage right here for this offseason talk, because I think a good place to start is where's Michigan State's floor right now? Before anyone announces that they're going to transfer out of the program, or before anyone announces they're going to transfer into the program, let's say the season tipped off tomorrow on this Wednesday. As you're driving down to Maryland Heights, Graham, let's say that that's when they tip off their season. What kind of a year would we expect right now? Because I had this question, we were just throwing this around in the group chat of former state news folks, actually. And I said, look, it's probably going to be like another 9 or a 10 seed season if the season started tomorrow. I know Xavier Booker coming back is exciting. That's only so much, though. My little down on this team, my little high in this team, where do you see the floor right now this offseason before any movement happens?
Right. It's definitely a lower floor than last year in this last season. And I think a lot of that has to do with there's just a lot of unknowns, a lot of progression and development that needs to happen. And that's not a bad thing in terms of where some of these guys are in their program. We don't know if there are going to be lasting ramifications for Jeremy Fears, right? Is he physically going to be the person he was before? And how ready will he be? I do think Trey Holloman's shown he's taken one step. Does he have another step in him? You look at Jaden Akins, who I think will be more comfortable at the 2 guard. He wants to be that guy. Can he be an efficient player who's scoring 13 to 15 a game and shooting closer to 40% again from three. I think part of his lack of development had to do with he was just in the same spot he was a year earlier with the same similar opportunities. Still a really good defensive player, still a really important player. But you look at Xavier Booker, like he's got to become a dude. They need him to become a guy. And then if he improves at the pace he did this season, you're probably in good shape. But that's still got to happen. Cohen Carr has got to, right now he is a dunker extraordinaire, an occasional rebounder, and there's not a lot else there,
Right.
You want to follow the path of somebody like Jason Richardson, who really, really worked on their game and he could become, I think he's got a decent shot. He just needs to work on it, needs reps, needs to become somebody who, when he's headed downhill with the ball, is somebody people fear at the rim. Those sort of things. And then the big men beyond the portal, and I do think they're going to address it in the portal. Does Jackson Kohler stick around? I think the shame of last year is that they thought they had something with Kohler and Booker as a pairing going into the year. And you saw that at times. Those two played well off each other, and we never really got to experience it. And then Kohler comes back, and he had to jump on a train that was already moving. They didn't throw the ball to him much in the post. They didn't, it just wasn't they should have redshirted him in my book. And then he'd have more time to figure it out, because then it wouldn't be like, well, my clock's ticking, I got 2 years left, I got to play somewhere, be it at Michigan State or elsewhere. Carson Cooper, I thought, was going to take another jump. I think he'll keep working, and he might. And maybe not say it's very possible, but it could happen that they recruit somebody who comes in and Carson Cooper has the jump, puts on 20 pounds of muscle, gets a little bit of a jump hook, and all of a sudden that person's battling for minutes with Cooper. And so, and that's okay. That's what you want. You want the development. Oops, apologies. I just knocked my own camera up here. I'm excited talking about these the offseason.
I know.
Anyway, so there's
I get it.
There's a lot there. In other words, a lot has to happen, and it could happen or it could not happen, and some of it probably will, and some of it won't. I think they'll be okay. But if they're going to be a team that's really in contention, and maybe you have one more year of Booker before he's in the, the pros want him, you need him to become a guy, and you need three guys who are real players.
Now, we listen to Tom Izzo all the time, but you talk to him 100-fold of what the rest of us do here. So I think this is a great question for you. I'm already patting myself on the back for it right now. Do you believe him? Do you believe that he has another late tournament run in him that he's talking about? Do you think he's going to do it or die trying, whatever he said? Basically, do you believe that he will make the changes necessary to get this train back on the tracks the way that us state fans are used to seeing it run? Or as he's approaching, 68, 69, or 70 years old, should we be a little nervous that maybe this old dog isn't going to want to learn new tricks here this late in his career?
No, I think he really wants this. He does not want to go out with 2-3 more years of 500 basketball and sort of being remembered that way. He wants to try to win another title, and I think he'll do what he has to do it. And I think his hope was that he could really do it the way he used to. And I still think that's, like, if you look at Houston right now in the Sweet 16, a number one seed, that's been built largely internally, and they will add a piece here and there. I still think that's the best way to build. But you've got to supplement, and you've got advantages that you didn't used to have. It used to be if you didn't have a big man or you didn't have a sizable wing or whatever it might be, you were just kind of screwed. You just kind of were what you were. And now it's, well, especially at a place like Michigan State that has the NIL money in basketball is a real advantage, has the cachet of Izzo and MSU. You have advantages other places don't. 22-year-olds are going to want to play for you. You also have one more year with the extra year of eligibility because of COVID. This is the final year of it, and the sport will get a little younger again after this. Yep. And so if you just want to go out and get a one-year guy, that guy is more available this coming year than they'll ever be again. And so that's a possibility if you just want to, add a veteran there. I do think he's going to make an effort here. I think this is, I think he's going to have to come to grips, and the hardest thing is you are going to alienate some players on your team, and you eventually Michigan State is going to lose somebody because of that when it's inconvenient.
Yep.
And that's just part of the deal. And that's it's not as fun as it used to be in that sense. You can't count on guys being 4-year guys, or even if they're 4-year college players. But I think MSU's NIL situation helps. You're not going to see guys jumping in the portal to check on a payday elsewhere the way they will certainly I think at some other schools.
That's a great point. And you also made a lot of great points in your very recent piece for Lansing State Journal. It's about the roster. We're going to start next segment talking about that piece, but also frame it as an over-under question. That's right. I don't think you can find it in any sports books, but it's just a fun way to talk, I guess. But first, speaking of over-unders, you need to talk all your ears off about Bettor Together. Folks, my bracket is blown to smithereens, and maybe yours is too. And if it's already busted, well, hey, let's try some daily fantasy sports. But let's say you're tired of the same daily fantasy grind where you make a roster, cross your fingers, and just hope for the best. Or something I do all the time, unfortunately, lose on the last leg of my pick'em entry. Well, now introducing Bettor Together, the first cooperative daily fantasy platform where teamwork triumphs talent and you can play with your friends, not against them. Pick more or less on real-time player stats, strategize with your partner to boost your odds, and climb that leaderboard together. So grab a friend and join the social daily fantasy sports movement. State fans, hey, we know sports a lot better than other folks, so hop on Bettor Together and let's put our money where our mouth is. Let's start winning together as one big Spartan family. Download Bettor Together now from the App Store and sign up using promo code LOCKEDON. That's all one word, LOCKEDON, for a chance to win your share of $1,000 in cash prizes. Remember the code LOCKEDON, because winning alone is fun, but it's Bettor Together. Also, Amazon Fire TV is your place to be for all things sports. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick you can plug right into your existing TV to provide access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have Fire TV. Now, Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to constantly supply the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences too. Fire TV channels lets you dive into in-game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest in the world of sports. We're talking March Madness, NBA, MLB, and tons more. Not to mention the great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, and cooking videos too. So check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this one. To learn more, go to www.amazon.com/lockedonfiretv. Now let's drag the one, the only Graham Couch of the Lansing State Journal and the Couch and the Rube podcast here, because recently, Lansing State Journal, he wrote a great piece, player by player, breaking down the roster for next year. Let's start it with this one. Besides Malik Hall, Tyson Walker, Davis Smith, and Steven Izzo, the four guys that we know for sure aren't coming back. Graham, I'm going to set the over-under at 1.5 guys leaving this offseason. Do you think it's going to be more than 1.5 guys leaving this offseason or less than? Take it away.
Well, are we counting A.J. Hoggard among the 1.5?
No, we are not. So that might be a gimme. That might be a free one right there. Yeah.
Are we counting Mady Sissoko?
I'm not. No,
okay.
I'm not. Yeah.
I think Sissoko's coming back.
Okay. Interesting.
Okay. I don't think when I said that on Couch in the Rube yesterday, and Jason just panicked, and I know a lot of fans do, and like the conversation derailed and everything, and like I think part of it is, whether he comes back or not, that doesn't change your plans, right? His ceiling is what his ceiling is. There are matchups and minutes where he can be useful. We've seen that. We just saw it, and I think he's a good backup center, a good third center, really. I mean, that's probably his role in certain matchups, certain games. He plays between. It might be a frustrating year from him, but he plays between 3 and 10 minutes a game, depending on the matchup in the day, and that's fine. That works. That absolutely works. If he comes back, I think he wants to. We'll see whether it all. Maybe he'll find a different place where he can play more. Hoggard, I think, should go someplace, and I think he can have a real good year somewhere and use that extra year. But it's time to turn the page at point guard. Over under 1.5, I would then say under if you're not counting those two guys.
Okay.
I think they lose. I think they lose one. I wouldn't be surprised if it was more. You just never know. But certainly, when I go through the lineup in my head of guys like Jaden Akins wanted to be a pro a year ago, but I think he has an understanding that it's just not there for him right now. He didn't do enough this year. And I think he also knows that he's got a great shot to be a headliner in a way that why would you go somewhere else, right?
Right.
And he's a level-headed, smart guy, level-headed, smart parents. He's not, if he ever leaves or makes it can be a rational decision. you look at a guy like Garrick Norman, who not from this area, has 4 years left, committed when Matt McQuaid was a part of the program and was his guy from down, and then McQuaid's gone, right? And may have had some homesickness early on, but I ran into him in the parking lot today over at Breslin coming back from Munn, and for all he could absolutely be honest, but I don't have any sense of that. He seems like a pretty happy guy, but again, that's not based on sourcing. Kohler is the one that I think I think it's a tough spot, and I think it's too bad because I love watching that guy play, and I love the potential his game had, a different type of game than other guys they have. And I understand size-wise, I think not the ideal 5. And I think if they just redshirted him, they would have had a little more. They were short-sighted in that. They were trying to, they just didn't throw the ball enough to him to really let him try to cook and get going this year. And I'm just not sure it's going to ultimately be the right fit for him. We'll see. I think it's a shame that didn't get a chance to play itself out differently if he does not go. But that would be my best guess. And then everybody else sort of individually, I think, likely returns. And maybe Kohler does too. Maybe that's ultimately the decision. That's just that's the one that I sort of look at and go, for his sake. And it's a loss for the program. And if you don't think it is, what he and Booker could be together, and they saw it in the preseason. And I think what the idea that if you play those two, Booker can help defend the 5, play the 4 offensively. There's lots of ways to do that. I do not think it's not a loss if they don't keep him, and so I hope for their sake they do, and that he ultimately decides to stay and they figure that out.
I want to stay on this Kohler topic, and you might have to just put me in my place right now because I'm just pigeonholing myself into this take of, all right, he's a little undersized. He's a below the rim big. He's tabbed to be a shooter. He doesn't really get many opportunities to do it. And when he does do it, he's below average when he does it. He's an okay rebounder, has some plus games, but by and large, he's average. Why does it seem to me that we just did Thomas Kithier all over again? Like, am I way off with that? Is it a completely different situation? Okay, thank you.
I mean,
sometimes I need this. Sometimes I need
was a good
this.
player, but Kohler has a skill that we haven't really seen. They just don't throw him the ball enough.
Okay.
And new rule, and this I mean, maybe it didn't apply to Malik Hall, but when the annual foot injury happens in October, and it will happen every year, it seems.
Yes, it will. Yep.
That person just redshirts because you want that year. And that when they come back, they never get. And I take that back in this sense. With Akins last year, he was really good at the end of the year. But if you're not back by a certain point, like if they tried to bring him back in December, they didn't get him back till January. And the season's rolling without him. And now you got a team that's used to never throwing it to the big guys. And he's a guy who just needed that game, I always thought, where he had, 5-6 buckets and was like, oh, wait. And if he had been around earlier when they were struggling to shoot, and he would have been more of an answer to trying to play through the post and get guys looks. And yes, he is not the biggest guy in the world. Is he, a Big Ten athlete? Is a defensive center? 100% not. Can he hang in there in some matchups and be a useful Big Ten player if you use him correctly? Yes. And so I just don't think they got the most out of that, and maybe they still will. But yeah, he is. I think there is a creativity to him. They were going to allow him to shoot threes. He had the green light coming out of the summer.
Gotcha.
That really a career and year destroyed, and by that foot injury. And it's too bad. And then not if you're good. And I know he played, I think, 6 games of 10 minutes or more, and he had a good game against Minnesota in a game they needed to win in the Big Ten tournament. So it wasn't like he wasn't useful, but it was not the role that they were thinking of him before he got hurt.
Yeah, I also want to toe the line too and not completely rail on the kid and say that, oh, he's a bum and he should leave. But because it is true, this foot did more than just pain to the foot. You missed those development games against the Alcorn States, against I guess Oakland ended up being a really good team, but still, you get what I mean. Those non-conference games are key for development, and he just missed all of them and had to be dumped right into Big Ten play.
It's key for the team. The team becomes what they're going to be without you, and then you sort of fit in and have to find your way. And I think even for, if you ask Jaden Akins a year ago, like trying to work his way into a team that sort of learned to live without you, he became a spot-up shooter for a long time. And because that was what was there, and I think that's something that happens. And when your other bigs are not bigs that you can throw the ball to, then that's really not even part of the offense anymore. And so that
Sure.
I think that was an issue, and I don't think they left him in long enough to let him really go. I am more pro Kohler than probably most people because I'm a sucker for that style of player. The offensive
Understandable.
guy who sees it, and
Yeah.
and that's if I were a Big Ten basketball coach, I would make the NIT every year with 5 really undersized, underathletic offensive guys who are fun to watch. But we would be fun, and we would
Sure.
be in the NIT, and people would be driven nuts. But that was the type of player I would recruit every single time.
The most fun you'd ever have watching a team that has no dunks the entire season, but
Yes.
Footwork galore, baby. It is fundamental city out there. It's just fantastic. I want to switch it up. I want to talk about the man of the hour. Yesterday, we talked a lot about Xavier Booker yesterday. We'll start the next segment with that. But Graham, I'm so sorry. I got to say goodbye to you for at least 2 more minutes here because I need to talk your ears off about Nissan. Folks, you already know this. Our friends over at Nissan, they are bringing you the March Madness bracket highlight. And each week we are picking one team that stands out, a team that's pushed it any further than the rest. Just like any of the all-new 2024 Nissan SUVs, these guys were able to take it to the next level. Like, for example, the Iowa State Cyclones. They can only be described as a Pathfinder. They've been thrilling to watch and have really created a lane for themselves entering the tournament as one of the hottest teams in the country. They have a day with Illinois this Thursday in the Sweet 16, or another team that's white hot right now, the NC State Wolfpack. They are obviously this team's Nissan Rogue. The team absolutely surprised us all with a powerful performance in their first 2 games in the tournament. Wins over Texas Tech and Oakland has set them up to play Marquette in the Sweet 16. They say win life, go Rogue, and that is exactly what the Wolfpack has done here. So take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Hey, speaking of auto needs, passion, drive, and patience, what brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive at eBay Motors. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered out there. With over 122 million parts. Again, 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You will always find exactly what you are looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every single time, or it's your hard-earned money back. Because with eBay Motors, you are burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. And would you look at that, folks? Graham Couch is still hanging around. My goodness gracious, he has not left. Wow. Thanks, Graham. I appreciate you, man. Thanks a lot for sticking around.
I got nowhere to be. So we're good.
Oh, there we go. All right, 5 more segments it is coming up with Graham. Here we go. No, I'm kidding. We'll do one more here. Xavier Booker. I hypothesized yesterday what his sophomore stat line could be, like what kind of a player we can expect from him, because going from 3.7 points per game to 13 points a game, 14 points a game, I don't think it's too far out of the realm of possibility here. He's going to have way more minutes. No one's going to log jam him. He's not going to have the super short leash that every freshman gets under Tom Izzo. Is like 14-ish points a game within reason for you, Graham? Or what are you feeling for Xavier Booker next year?
Yeah, it's very possible. I think my guess was like 12.6 and 6-7 rebounds, something like that. It could be more. It could be less. I mean, I think he's a guy who, like, for a guy who shot 33% from 3, he is a pure shooter, and we saw that. Like, that outside shot really makes him dangerous. We saw him start to do a little in the post. I think defensively he'll be a rim protector to some degree for them. Mm-hmm. I'm very curious to see what develops and what it looks like. And the thing about, what he is long term, like in the NBA, when you're 6'11" and you can shoot, there is a place for you. And so defensively, I think it's an important year for him. But they'll take him after next year if he's a good player. So you probably get one more year out of him. And the fact that he put on 20 pounds in season, and you could see it in sort of his build a little bit, that's a good sign. Now, how much more weight should he and can he hold? That that they'll have to figure out in terms of what he wants to play, what they want to, or what he thinks his future should be in terms of that. And I think there is more strength to add. There's a little more acumen, sort of understanding where to be and how to take advantage of things. But there's a fearlessness to him that gives him a shot. And there's, just a pure shot to him. He can shoot over people. I think he'll be a major league plus player and help stretch the floor. And there's a potential lineup next year. I mean, they should have enough shooting next year to never have really clunky lineups out there, because you had a Garrick Norman, you have a Trey Holloman, you have a Jaden Akins. You're talking, regardless of what the freshmen give you or other guys develop into, you're talking a minimum of 4 guys who should be really plus 3-point shooters, guys you want taking threes. And but I think Booker's a big part of that.
Do you want to go to the ice right now? Let's talk a little bit of puck.
Sure.
Let's get nuts. Back-to-back shows talking hockey. Look at us. There we go. Can this be sustained moving forward? Because this has been an incredible year for Michigan State. Big Ten champs, Big Ten tournament champs. Obviously, they got one of the 1 seeds in this tournament. Is it crazy to just assume that Adam Nightingale is going to have staying power here for Michigan State, or how do you just see the next 3-5 years of Michigan State hockey?
I mean, I do, and I think they should get Levshunov back for another year. The freshman defenseman who's going to be a top 5 pick. The way that works there is, usually a defenseman, you get more than 1 year, even when they're really high draft picks. And the way this is going to be a league that's a real destination for portal and recruiting, it just seems like a place that's got a lot going for it. At some point, I think Jared DeMichael, that one of the 2 assistants, is going to get a job somewhere. And that the staff right now is really good. And so that will be something he'll have to replace. And there are going to be years like the Big Ten is just wicked brutal. And so to think they may get to more Frozen Fours than they win Big Ten titles, if that makes sense. Because I do think they'll be a regular in the NCAA tournament. But there are going to be years where Minnesota is just, and it's a 1-game scenario in the Big Ten tournament, or throughout the course of the season, somebody's ahead of you. But I think they're going to be what you really want for this program. I think will happen is, a perennial NCAA tournament team. And in hockey, that's only 16 teams. You're already in the Sweet 16. They're all good when you get there. Everybody's got a shot. And a team that's, perennial in the upper half of the Big Ten in contention a lot of years. And that, I think, sustainable. I think Nightingale just understands it. I think he's a really savvy coach with understands. I mean, you think about his 2 assistants, Townsend and Michael, did not apply for the job. He had lots of people apply. Yeah. He instead went and talked to people and said, how do I do this? And one of the stories I'm going to try and do this week when I'm down there is Ferschweiler, the coach at Western Michigan, is a guy that they knew each other from their Red Wings time together, he and Nightingale. But also before that, when Nightingale was at Michigan State as a video guy, and Ferschweiler was on Jeff Blashill's staff at Western, and they turned that thing, and that had been in the wrong direction for a long time. I mean, these are coaches of a certain era and certain ilk who just understand what it takes to turn a program and what it takes to have the energy and sustainability. And I think Nightingale gets it. I think the fact that people want to play for them, you see guys like Trey Augustine, flip his commitment from Michigan to Michigan State. Yeah. I do think it's sustainable to an extent. Every year won't look like this. And every year won't be, you're not going to get the Big Ten title every year. There will be teams that are just better. But I do think it's largely sustainable in terms of being a program that people are excited about every year.
Do you have it in you to rail on where the location is for this first round or first 2 rounds for Michigan State? Arena that seats 2,500 people. You're better off having these games in Demonstration Hall on Michigan State's campus as far as seating goes. Do you have it in you to get fired up, or do you oddly find reason in this location here?
No, well, you can play at Washington Park on Lansing South Side outdoors. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. Yeah, I am. If there's one thing that pisses me off, it's logistics. It's failed logistics, right?
You got him here. Yeah.
Yep. I'm a big logistics guy. It drives me absolutely nuts when people do things wrong. And it's not just that in the hockey tournament. I've been waiting 12 years to get in on these takes, and Michigan State's just been part of it. So I've been stuck. I've been held back from my dreams. But I think a big component is, one, these should be campus site games.
Yes.
And they should, but here's the thing: not every campus. If you do that, not every school can do 4 teams, and a lot like Munn before it was renovated could not have hosted a regional, right?
Gotcha.
So what you have to understand also is you go to best 2 out of 3 is all hockey series should be. There should never be. I mean, once you get to the Frozen Four, it's big enough. You've kind of gotten there. You've got the banner anyway. Mm-hmm. You play one single elimination. That's fine. But in the first 2 rounds, it should be over 2 weekends. You don't take a week off because the basketball is playing their Final Four. Over 2 weekends, best 2 out of 3 series. The top 8 hosts this weekend. Then the next 4 host the next weekend. It's just 2 teams, and then it's just so simple. And and then the better. And I understand that in college basketball, for example, the best team doesn't always win because it is single elimination. There are so many more data points in basketball where you're playing, you score 160 total points in a game or whatever, and one shot, one bounce doesn't affect it the way it does in hockey. And hockey, one bounce, ruins a lot. And so I think, it should never be not 2 out of 3 at this level. I can't even imagine going through a conditioning practice in the summer, the year before, thinking next year, one bounce can knock us out. Why the hell am I working? I just cannot. Yeah. It drives me incredible. And then this, from what I understand, there weren't a lot of people that bid on this. North Dakota did as well. The problem is there are other rinks around the area that seat 10,000 are a little better fit for it than this. It's not ideal. It's just not. And I'm curious to see what it looks like and whether it feels big time with the crowd there or whether it feels rink-a-dink and just sort of what the atmosphere is.
Like, where do they even shoehorn the media? Are you guys going to hang on to the American flag and the rafters? Like, how does this work? We care about you guys, Graham. Like, what's it going to look like for you out there? That's ridiculous.
Don't worry, I care about me too. And I'm trying to make sure. And I think it's a young staff down there too. In terms of, I don't know if they're really equipped to host this sort of thing. And when you have big programs coming in now, I mean, nobody covers Western hockey all that well anymore, and that's that's a. Don't get me on a rant on that, but because I was once at the Kalamazoo Gazette, and that should be done better than it is. But when you have Michigan State and Michigan and North Dakota, which comes with a force of coverage and fan base, you gotta. It's going to be it's a big shindig, and I don't know if this place is equipped to make that event feel like that.
Well, best of luck down there. You got this, Graham. We believe, we got faith in you. I know you said you got nowhere to go, but Graham, we're going to free you from the shackles of Locked On Spartans and let you go enjoy the rest of your day before you ship on down to Maryland Heights and hang out with 16 of the rowdiest college hockey fans you could find down there, because that's all the arena can seat. So really do appreciate you. Anything you want to plug here before we let you go enjoy the rest of your day? Yeah, no,
I will have an updated piece on Tyson Walker and where he fits in my top 50 all time with Michigan State basketball. So that'll be coming out, and then hockey coverage all weekend from St. Louis. So.
Love it, and always love having you on, Graham. I know the listeners and the viewers really do appreciate you, man. But hey, folks, until next time, we're going to be back tomorrow. It's Locked On Spartans, 5 days a week. Until then, love you all. Go Green.